Hi everyone. So, picking up where I just left off for the second session. This is part two of the second session. I stepped away and ate some lunch and had a coffee, and I'm going to keep working on this painting for another hour or so. I sped it up, so this video is only about 8 minutes, but I wanted you to just be able to see the whole painting get done and record the whole process. I have the painting currently in a state where it's a little clunky looking, and I want to go back in and start bringing back some edges and reestablishing the dark values, which I'm doing in the leaves right now. And I'm paying attention to the interior shadows, knowing that shadows usually have a dark edge on the exterior of the shadow and then lighten up and maybe even change temperature on the interior of that shadow. And that's what's going to give them that depth. Pay special attention to your shadow areas and not making them a flat color or value. That can really do a lot to make them not look realistic. Value contrast directs your eye, and that is how we know where to look. And painting is always a combination of soft, kind of out of focused areas with super vibrant, sharp contrast. Thinking about that, where you want the eye to come to first, and how you want it to move around the painting is something that I'm starting to think about at this point. With still life painting, you are dealing with reality. You are painting something as you see it. But also, you are playing the role of a director, and you have the ability to control where your audience and where the viewer looks when they're looking at this thing. You know, if you look at Chardin, who by this point I'm sure I've talked to you a lot about, um, he's using highlights and saturate color and distinct shape to make some things, some objects in his paintings really glow and take front stage, and he's letting other things kind of slip into the background or become more indistinct. And that's something with still life painting you can really think about is yes, everything is sitting before you, um, but do you want the banana to have more attention than the pineapple does, or the onions do, or do you want the knife to really be the thing that you notice first? For me, I'm starting to think about how the banana is probably where you're going to start looking. The pineapple is something you can kind of get lost in for a while, and I want the knife to really be this thing that you see, you don't really even notice what it is until kind of the last thing, the very end. I like that it's kind of indecipherable and illegible, and it makes a still life a little mysterious, which I like. You see, I just added some distinction to the onion, and I'm starting to think about the temperature of that onion and trying to match the texture of the skin of the onion. Um, I'm really focused on this like shadow break between the warm light and the cool shadow on the other side. You see, I've kind of hit that a few times trying to paint the shape of the shadow, and now I'm going in with that underneath it and starting to get the details of that over the top of this like this kind of diagonal cast shadow that's happening across it. And I'm letting myself really put in a lot of focus on like the two rows of the pineapple that are closest to me. I want that to have some sharpness to it and some real distinction, so it really looks like it's the closest thing to me on the pineapple. And I'm letting the right side of the pineapple kind of become blurrier, and take the light from the window, and same with the other side. Since the light is hitting the left side of the pineapple so directly, it's going to be a very soft shape. It's going to really kind of flicker on that side. And so, knowing that, I really want the center of the pineapple to have all the definition that I'm going to be working with. So, I know I've gone over the areas a few times, but the central two rows of the pineapple, I'm really doing some work to develop. And I'm really happy with that vertical mark I just put down, that little kind of check mark between the rows of the pineapple that really lets it have some structure and really lets that in that shadow area between the rows breathe. I think I picked a really tricky object to paint because there are a lot of small details, and I'm having to balance those small details with some big marks so it doesn't just become all confusing and too much to look at. You can definitely oversee when you're painting from observation because you're able to see more and get closer to the things than a spectator would looking at this painting from how far back they would be. So you can oversee and overpaint detail and it won't look right. So it's finding a balance between what you're able to see and the detail you're able to catch and knowing what will look right, translating that into the painting of the thing. That sounds counterintuitive, and it takes a lot of work and time to decide how much detail you're really going to allow into the painting. But it's something you'll learn to do eventually. Starting to feel better about this row and the amount and the value that's going into it, and where I'm allowing definition to continue. It's feeling right and it's transitioning better between from the warm shadow to the cool shadow in a way that I like. And I'm redefining the shadow underneath the pineapple, which is really going to make this come off the table.